What's up, y'all? This is Reggie White, aka Speeding Bullet, aka Bullet, aka the Minister of Defense. I promise I won't add too many more AKAs to that. But either way, thank you for tuning in to watch this video, whether or not you are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or in the podcast universe. So, uh, before I get started, just want to like I said, thank everybody for the support. Anybody that's tuned in, don't forget to like. If this is a conversation or a channel that you enjoy, don't forget to subscribe if you want to be updated whenever we post any videos. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to engage with the channel. This is a space for everyone to be able to voice their opinions, and don't forget to share if you think that someone may benefit or enjoy this type of conversation. So I want to jump into this real quick because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I think it's important. I think it's an important conversation that we need to have. So I want to talk about the enigma that is Tim Scott. So if you guys have been reading or just following anything that has to do with politics in the last week or so, the senator from South Carolina, Tim Scott, who previously was a presidential candidate but dropped out of the race sometime, I think, in November. And since then, it's been pretty silent. But recently, within the last couple of days, Tim Scott had two interesting, if not important, what do you call it? Statements or actions that have happened within the last couple of days. So the first one was Tim Scott, and let me give you just a little bit of idea of who Tim Scott is. So Tim Scott is a Republican senator from South Carolina, one of the few Republican lawmakers in the entire country. I think he's the only black senator that is from a southern state that is a Republican. Please don't quote me on this. But Tim Scott has been around in the political world for a couple of years, and he is known for his ultra conservative views, Christian evangelical views. Also is known for being a 58 or 59-year-old virgin, but also known for just his commentary about black people, about his personal struggle and achievements, and also what he expects or how he views race relations and things of that nature. So Tim Scott has been around for a while. Like I said, the senator from South Carolina. So he did throw his hat in the ring to be president, and it was met with a lot of obviously resistance. I mean, and not just specifically for him, but just because the Republican Party is squarely in the hand of Donald Trump. So anything that Tim Scott did do wasn't going to really move the needle much for the Republican Party, but he was a tool or even just a symbol of what the Republican Party wants to attract, that type of black person, even if we just say black male, that is ultra conservative and has some of the views of the Republican Party platform, policies, things that they value, if not totally, a lot of the views. So Tim Scott represented a window into seemingly a black vote. So Tim Scott got out of the presidential campaign a few months ago and has been pretty quiet, but within the last week or so, I think it was Sunday or Monday, Tim Scott announced that he was going to be supporting Donald Trump. Now, what is pretty significant about this endorsement is that Tim Scott previously said that he either just wouldn't endorse someone publicly or, would just follow whatever the party nominee was. So for Tim Scott to actually endorse Donald Trump during the primary kind of goes against what he said he would do when he was a candidate and after. So it was pretty surprising for a lot of people to see and hear Tim Scott said that he would support Donald Trump. Now, what's interesting about that is that Donald Trump's lone competitor for the Republican nomination is Nikki Haley, who was the governor of South Carolina and was very instrumental in Tim Scott even getting a shot in politics. So I don't know the exact details, but what I do know is there was some type of special circumstance that there was a Senate position that was open, and Nikki Haley, being the governor, or being the governor, had the ability to appoint someone and appointed Tim Scott. So Nikki Haley had some, just some assistance in Tim Scott becoming who he is. I'm not really quite sure of what his brand was in South Carolina at that moment, whether or not he was up and coming or anything, but it's clear that his relationship with Nikki Haley got him that position, and kind of started his political career, as far as I know. So to have Tim Scott endorse Donald Trump, being as though Nikki Haley was instrumental in him getting the office that he holds right now, was pretty shocking. Tim Scott could have just, sat this one out, could have not given a definite or specific endorsement. He could have just, told the line, remain neutral, just not give his unwavering support for Donald Trump, which I think most people thought that that's what he would do, just because of the relationship that he had with Nikki Haley and his career. But nonetheless, Tim Scott, he endorses Donald Trump. And, in his Tim Scott fashion, with that almost preacher-like voice, he gave a speech pretty much, just talking about how much he loves Donald Trump. I mean, we know how the Republicans, well, most of the Republicans feel about Donald Trump. So Tim Scott towing the party line, that was his message for the voters, that he's going to be endorsing Donald Trump. Now, Tim Scott also made another announcement, which probably was covered as stringent, shall I say, than his announcement of endorsing Donald Trump. So the other announcement that Tim Scott made was that he was engaged. Now, why is that important? Well, Tim Scott, being the senator from South Carolina, throughout his career as a senator and as a politician, there has been some questions about Tim Scott and him not being unmarried, but also being a bachelor, or someone who is not even really dating, and the attitude of some people towards their politicians and public figures who are either single, single males, or definitely single females, but single males who are unmarried, and their ability to lead, and what that says about them as people. So this has been a question about Tim Scott since he's had a national profile. Like, what what the folks on the Republican side are saying, like, what is wrong with Tim Scott, or why is Tim Scott not married, or why is Tim Scott not dating anyone? What is going on with that? Or why is Tim Scott a virgin at 50 plus years of age? So these are the things that, there were rumblings in the Republican Party on what does that mean? And when you hear those types of conversations, what that actually means is that they have questions about Tim Scott's sexuality, right? And that is a question that all politicians on the Republican side has to answer, and in their minds answer correctly. They have to be straight, be male, most likely white males, but in this instance, a black male. But anyone that does not fall into that category, at least publicly, ends up not having a chance of getting votes in the Republican Party. Now, Tim Scott is going to get votes, period, because he represents a type of black that the Republican Party is absolutely comfortable with. So he's going to get votes because he is a tool for that machine. He's a tool for that mission, and he's going to represent what the party needs him to. But there has within the party been a lot of conversation about what's Tim Scott's sexuality, why is Tim Scott single, and there has been questions about whether or not he's gay, They have, folks have done research. They've interviewed people that are close to Tim Scott, people that are on his campaign, people that have day-to-day dealings with Tim Scott, and they were like, he's not married. He's not even dating. He's not even has anyone in his life. So that's kind of been the story around Tim Scott, and probably a hindrance to his political career, especially outside of South Carolina. So a couple of, I would say, a few months or weeks into his campaign, these questions were becoming louder and louder and louder. So Tim Scott ended up, I'm not gonna say ended up, because I'm not here to question the authenticity of his relationship. But what seemingly happened was this woman popped up that was never around, and after these rumblings became louder and louder, this woman appeared by Tim Scott's side, and he introduced her as someone that he had been dating. Mind you, no one on his team had ever heard of her or had any communication with her or dealings with her or sightings of her or anything. But nonetheless, Tim Scott and this woman made their relationship public. Take that for what it's worth. But a little bit about the woman. So she herself is, I believe, white. Was previously married and has, I think, 3 children. So someone that is, has already had a family and is, of a certain age. But what's most important is that, in this situation, she is white, which is a symbol, for something, different, as we all know. But so Tim Scott, he pops up with this blonde hair white woman, and to seemingly stop some of that chatter about his sexuality, about him not being married or even in a relationship or even dating, anything like that. So he pops up with this white woman, and then they are seen together a few times, and then that's that. They go off to do what they do. I'm not here to question the authenticity of their relationship. I'm just telling you what I know, and then I'll tell you my opinion later on. So Tim Scott has his white woman, and now it's time for an announcement of solidarity and of support for Donald Trump. Now, like I said earlier, this is something that Tim Scott did not have to do. He was under no pressure to announce any type of endorsement of any candidate. And if anything, most candidates give a very similar answer of they will just follow or they will just support the nomination of whoever is the party's nomination. That they'll just support that person. That makes it just very, very vanilla, very, very bland, very, very basic answer, but it keeps him out of trouble. But Tim Scott wanted to make it public and gave a speech on why he endorses Donald Trump. So he does that simultaneously with announcing the engagement. He has the cameraman and does a thing on a beach in South Carolina, one of their islands, and does the whole thing. Which I'm not here to judge that. I think that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. Two people, getting married or getting engaged and having that type of interaction. There's nothing negative that I can say about that type of interaction. However, it was done pretty much in conjunction, maybe the next day or the day before. He announces his support for Donald Trump. Now, what does that mean? So, in my opinion, what that means is that Tim Scott is making a play here, and that play is to possibly make a run with Donald Trump as vice president. Now, that's a major play for Tim Scott, but also for the Republican Party. Being able to parade, I don't want to use a parade, but just being able to show their party as being inclusive to black people, inclusive to black males. We have a minority. We are on this, this path towards equality and there's no racism over here. There's no bigotry over here. Here we got a white guy. Here we got a black guy who's going to be our VP. How do you guys feel about that? Vote Republican. So Tim Scott does represent a symbol to Republicans and to some Democrats and independents that the Republican Party is a all-inclusive, open party that you should think to join or think to follow and maybe adopt their policies. So I believe Tim Scott is making a play for vice president, which is important because the minority vote, as we all know, is absolutely very important. And Tim Scott does represent minorities, but also he represents a message to minorities that you can make it if you work hard or do all of these things. I think that Tim Scott does represent that. However, I think that Tim Scott is out of touch and out of bounds with the struggles of the everyday person in comparison to someone who has achieved an elite status, even a political status. I don't think that that's to be compared to someone who is in a situation that is much more difficult to come out of. But like I said, Tim Scott represents that. What I want to talk about is just why does Tim Scott, in my mind, have to publicly declare he is engaged to a white woman and to push back on any conversation or thoughts about Tim Scott being gay, right? Or Tim Scott, having questions about his sexuality. So for me, Tim Scott doesn't really realize, or maybe he does, he just doesn't really even respect or realize what type of party he represents and what type of party he has shown his solidarity to, which is the Republican Party. Now, the Republican Party is the party that cares about that stuff. So Tim Scott, if he was a Democrat, it would be a non-issue if he was gay. It would be a non-issue if he was single. It would be a non-issue if he wasn't dating. It would be a non-issue if he wasn't ultra super conservative or religious. Let's just say religious. Those things wouldn't matter if he was if he was a Democrat. However, as a Republican, those things absolutely matter. Those things absolutely he will be judged on. So Tim Scott is not really doing the correct calculus in how these people who we know have bigotry, they have prejudice, they have racism, sexism, all of the isms that you could think of. Tim Scott's not doing a calculus on how this is going to play out in the real world. So the same people that would be upset, with Tim Scott for being gay, or even just being, just super religious, or just being single, like those are the same people who still would be upset with you as a black man being engaged to a white woman. So what Tim Scott doesn't really realize is that prejudice, that bigotry, that racism, that sexism, that hatred, it doesn't change just because you have some type of window into their acceptance. Like it doesn't change. And the fact that there were questions from Republicans and from donors and from voters about his sexuality tells you what you need to know about the party. Whether or not you agree or disagree with Republicans, Democrats, their processes, their policies, their beliefs on certain things. One thing we can honestly, if we take a look at it, or clearly, if we are actually keeping score, is that the Republican Party is the party that does not embrace all individuals. It does not as a whole, and the party just does not embrace gays. It does not embrace transsexual people. It does not embrace black people as a whole. And this is as a whole. The party has shown itself to be of that ilk, of that sort. However, Tim Scott has made it his his point and his career to try to become a part of this party and to represent this party and its beliefs. So I just think it's interesting that Tim Scott had to do these I want to say performative gestures just in order to be accepted in the party. It really shouldn't matter if Tim Scott is married or single or whatever. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter who he's dating. That has nothing to do with his policies. That has nothing to do with anything. But for Tim Scott to make this announcement, I think one day before he endorsed Donald Trump, gives you an idea of what he has to not only endure, but what's expected of him as a black Republican in the South, and as a black Republican who could potentially be the vice president nomination. Like what he has to go through, what lifestyle changes, at least publicly, he has to display. If Tim Scott comes out and says he's gay, there's no shot that he could be VP. No shot at all. No shot he could be president. No shot he could probably even have a position in the cabinet, just based on the attitudes of Republicans, based on the attitude of Donald Trump. Even if Donald Trump is not, overtly anti-gay or anti-LGBTQ community or anti-black, he represents people that are, and those people that are expecting their president to move in that manner. So this was an interesting question, interesting enigma of someone like Tim Scott. And the question that I would pose to the audience is, are you black and are you a Republican? That's a very, very interesting question to me, and a question that I really elicit answers to. Being black and being a Republican, to me, is a very difficult space to be in, because outside of the policies that you may agree with from the Republican Party, how do you settle with the fact that the Republican Party is currently, when you're talking about 100 years ago, 50 years ago, we're talking about currently, the Republican Party is full of, it's not full of, but the Republican Party does have a base of voters who are racist, who are bigots, who are sexist, and who live in conspiracy theory. So how do you settle up following or walking beside those folks who could potentially hate you or could potentially not value who you are as a person? Now, what my brother would say, and he has said, my brother would say that there are racists on all sides, right? There are racist Democrats, right? There's racists in the Democratic Party, right? So my brother would say that, how do you settle with knowing that it's racist on both ends? So what I explained to him is, I feel like there's a difference between being a racist, having racists in the party, and being a racist party. And the difference is, having racists in your party just means that the law of averages says that there's going to be some racists that are in the Democratic Party. Like, that's just the law of average, that there's going to be some people in there. That's why it's going to be some of everything in a particular party. But when you say a party is racist, that means that that party has principles that are based on ideas of race and of superiority. They have principles, they have ideas that are based on that. So there's a difference between just, a random or an unverified number, a theoretical number of people in the Democratic Party that may or may not be racist. Even if they are, there's a difference between having racist people in your party and being a racist party. The Republican Party is a racist party. The Republican Party is the place where neo-Nazis, KKK, that's where those folks go with their political beliefs, with their political ideology. They follow the Republican platform. So the Republican Party, by and large, is a racist party that embraces races. I mean, we all have heard about Donald Trump saying that there are good people on both sides. I don't know if there are good people on the racist side. That's a whole different conversation. But the fact that to find some equivalence in people that promote hate, they uh, they champion hatreds towards people. I don't know if those people should be considered good people on both sides, but I digress. So to wrap things up, I got a question to the audience. If you are someone that subscribes to a political party, and you are a Republican, I am just curious of why you are Republican. What has brought you to that decision? Whether or not there was some type of change or switch, that maybe you were a Democrat, or maybe you just followed what your folks followed, and then you came to some realization because of your own, just your own, um, just your own experiences, your own research, that you decided that you wanted to be Republican. Let me know in the chat. Uh, were you or are you a Republican, and how did you come to that decision? And what do you feel about the state of the Republican Party right now? Are you excited that someone like Tim Scott is looking towards maybe making a run with Donald Trump as VP? Like, what is the state? What do you think? What do you feel like the state of the Republican Party is? So that's the topic that I'm gonna leave you guys with. Hopefully, we'll get some responses. So I'm going to wrap it up there. But before you log off, before you click off this screen, don't forget to like. Do not forget to like these videos. Whether or not you see this video on Facebook, whether or not you see this video on Instagram or YouTube. YouTube is where this platform specifically lives. So I would like for folks to go on the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the videos, comment on the YouTube channel. But wherever you see these videos at, make sure you like, make sure you share. If you know someone that you think would be interested in this type of conversation, this type of space, don't hesitate to share this video to whoever you think might find some value in it. Also, don't forget to engage. Like, I would like for you guys to not only just like, but to comment on these on these topics. Is it something that you agree with, or maybe it's something that you disagree with? We welcome all types of dialogue. We welcome all types of opinions. Just make sure that you can back it, and that you value and enjoy just healthy back and forth, which that's what this is all about. Just making sure that people have an ability, have a platform to be able to give their opinion, and to be able to hear good commentary on these types of events within the news or current events. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Hopefully, like I said, you guys like and subscribe and share, and I will see you guys later. Thanks.